So imagine you're sitting on a jury, right? And a witness takes the stand, and they swear under oath that they saw broken glass scattered all over the scene of this car crash.
Right. And I mean, they seem incredibly credible, like they aren't lying.
Exactly. They totally believe it. But what if I told you there was zero broken glass at the scene? Like, absolutely none.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, their brain literally manufactured that memory in, a matter of milliseconds.
Yeah.
And it was simply because a lawyer asked a question using the word smashed instead of the word hit.
It's terrifying how easily our brains do that.
It really is. So today we are doing a deep dive into the invisible, highly contested, and honestly sometimes dangerous architecture of how your brain reads between the lines.
Yeah, because it's a cognitive process that we all perform, like thousands of times a day.
For sure.
I mean, think about the last time you read a text message from a friend that just said, fine, period.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Uh-huh.
You just spend 10 minutes agonizing over it, right?
Exactly. You're looking for the hidden meaning because your brain is constantly making inferences. We do it when we read a room, when we watch a movie, and especially when we read a text.
Which is exactly the mission for this deep dive. We are taking a magnifying glass to the actual mechanics of making inferences.
And we have some really good material for this, too.
We do. We're pulling from this fascinating stack of reading research, psycholinguistic studies, and actually prep materials for high-stakes nursing entrance exams.
Right, specifically the TEAS and HESI exams.
Yeah, those exact ones. Because we want to decode what it actually means to draw a logical conclusion from implied text.
It's so important for those fields.
It is. Because whether you are a nursing student trying to pass these clinical gatekeeping tests, or just somebody trying to become a sharp reader, or even if you're just insanely curious about how your brain connects the dots, understanding this skill is kind of like seeing the matrix of human comprehension.
I love that analogy. But to see that matrix, we really have to go back in time for a minute just to define what an inference actually is.
Right, because that hasn't always been agreed upon.
No, not at all. The way the educational system and these big testing companies view this skill has fundamentally shifted over the years.
Let's talk about that shift, actually, because, making an inference feels like one of those things we all just learned on a Tuesday in third grade,
Yeah, it feels super basic.
Right. We just assume it means reading between the lines. So has the definition really changed that much?
Oh, drastically. Like back in the mid-20th century, reading comprehension instruction was very behaviorist.
Behaviorist, like just the facts.
Exactly. Teaching reading just meant teaching people to get the facts.
Yeah.
If you could decode the words on the page and then just repeat back what the author explicitly stated, you were considered a successful reader.
Wow. Okay. So where did inference fit in?
It wasn't entirely ignored, but it was viewed as this sort of optional, advanced literary trick, like something you'd do in a high-level poetry class, not in basic reading comprehension.
Okay, so it was like treating a book like a simple data transfer.
Pretty much.
The author writes the data, and the reader just downloads the data. Nothing added.
That was the prevailing mindset of the era, yeah. But then the cognitive revolution happened in psychology in the 1970s, and researchers began to realize that, well, meaning doesn't just sit on the page waiting to be downloaded.
It's more active than that.
Much more active. Meaning is actively constructed by the reader. They actually proved that you cannot fully understand even a basic two-sentence paragraph without your brain inferring connections that the author never even bothered to spell out.
Oh, wow. Which perfectly explains why modern standardized reading tests, like those nursing entrance exams we mentioned, they treat inference as a separately scored, highly critical category.
Exactly. They aren't just testing if you understand the passage, they are testing the core engine of how you build meaning in the first place.
And that is precisely where test takers seem to hit a wall.
Oh, constantly.
Yeah.
Because we make inferences so naturally in our daily lives, we get kind of sloppy with it.
We take it for granted.
We do. And when we sit down for a multiple choice test, people constantly blur the lines between an inference, a prediction, and an assumption.
And test writers know that.
Oh, they totally know it. And they actively weaponize that confusion in the answer choices.
Okay, so let's break that down for the listener. If I'm looking at a tricky reading comprehension question, what is the actual functional difference between making a valid inference and just making like a really solid prediction?
Well, the short answer is time.
Time.
Yeah, it all comes down to the timeline of the text. So, an inference is a logical conclusion about what the text implies right now, like in the present moment of the narrative.
Okay, present tense.
Right. A prediction is a guess about what happens next. It's something the text hasn't actually reached yet.
Ah, I see.
So, if a passage describes dark clouds gathering and the wind picking up, inferring that a storm is currently brewing, that's a valid inference.
Right, because that's happening right now.
Exactly. But guessing that a character's house will flood later, that is a prediction.
Got it. Okay, and an assumption. Where does that one fit in?
So an assumption is an unstated belief that the author is relying on to make their argument. And that belief may or may not actually be true in reality.
Oh, so that's dangerous territory for a test.
Very. And to make matters even more complicated for test takers, psycholinguists actually split inferences themselves into two main categories.
Okay, what are they?
You've got elaborative inferences and bridging inferences.
Elaborative and bridging. Okay, elaborative sounds like I don't know, adding my own flavor to the text.
That is a perfect way to put it, yeah.
Yeah.
Elaborative or forward inferences happen when your brain adds plausible details that the text never actually demanded.
Like what?
Like if you read a sentence that says, "The surgeon began the operation," your brain almost certainly pictures that surgeon wearing sterile gloves.
Well, yeah. Because obviously a surgeon would be wearing gloves. It would be super bizarre if they weren't.
Right. It makes complete sense in the real world. But crucially, the word gloves was never in the text.
Oh, I see. I just elaborated.
Exactly. You elaborated. Bridging inferences, on the other hand, are backward-looking. They happen when you connect a new sentence to a piece of information that came right before it.
Give me an example of that.
Sure. So if sentence 1 says, "John dropped the vase," and sentence 2 says, "It shattered," your brain builds a bridge to realize it refers to the vase.
Okay, so here's the million-dollar question. For anyone taking one of these TEAS or HESI exams, which one do the tests actually want?
Oh, they strictly want the bridging, textually anchored inference.
Only bridging.
Only bridging. They emphatically do not want your free-form elaboration. Standardized tests will punish you for bringing in outside knowledge.
Wait a second, though. If I'm filling in the blanks with my own context to make this bridge between sentences, isn't that literally just an educated guess?
You'd think so, but no.
You're telling me tests punish us for doing exactly what our brains are wired to do.
Yes. And this is the #1 misconception that completely sabotages students. An inference on a test is never just an educated guess. I don't care how reasonable it sounds.
Really?
Never.
Never. A valid inference must be traceable to specific evidence in the passage.
Okay, so you have to point to it.
Yes. Test writers deliberately design wrong answers that are entirely plausible in the real world, like the surgeon wearing gloves. Right. But because they aren't backed by the specific text you just read, they are traps.
That is so sneaky.
It is. If defending your answer requires a fact from outside the passage, it is not a valid inference. It is an assumption masquerading as an inference.
Wow. They are actively trying to bait you into using your own common sense against yourself.
Pretty much, yeah. If you step outside the boundaries of the paragraph, you just fail. But if our brains do this elaborating automatically all day long, how does anyone know where the line is? Like, to figure out how to stop making those bad assumptions, we really have to look at how our brains perform this bridging act in the first place, right?
Exactly. And to understand that, we can turn to the work of Herbert Clark.
Okay, who's that?
He's a psycholinguist who actually coined the specific term bridging inference back in the mid-70s. He created this example that perfectly illustrates this boundary, and honestly, it's still cited in cognitive research today.
Let's hear it.
Okay, consider these two really simple sentences. Mary got some picnic supplies out of the car. The beer was warm.
Okay. Mary, car, picnic, warm beer. Got it.
Now, notice what is missing there. The first sentence mentions picnic supplies, but it never mentions beer.
Right.
And the second sentence mentions beer, but it never says it came from the car. Yet when you hear those two sentences, you instantly understand that the beer was part of the picnic supplies Mary took from the car.
That is wild to think about, actually. Because I didn't deduce A to B to C.
Yeah. You didn't have to.
I didn't sit there stroking my chin saying, picnics sometimes involve beverages and beer is a beverage, therefore. I just instantly pictured warm beer coming out of a trunk.
Yep. And modern eye-tracking studies prove just how instant it really is.
How so?
Well, when researchers track the saccades, that's the rapid eye movements of people reading text readers' eyes, barely even pause at moments like this.
They just glide right over it.
Exactly. The brain makes the inference in a few hundred milliseconds, completely beneath your conscious awareness.
So when you are sitting in a testing center, sweating, staring at a nursing entrance exam, the test isn't actually checking if your brain can make the inference.
No, because your brain already did it instantly.
Right. So what is it testing?
It's testing something much harder. It is testing whether you can slow down, reverse engineer your own subconscious thought process, and consciously justify with words an inference your brain just made instinctively.
You have to find the anchor.
Exactly. It's asking you to find the exact textual anchor for your thought.
Man, that is like asking me to explain the exact physics of how I balance on a bicycle while I'm currently riding it.
That's a great way to put it.
I just do it.
Yeah.
But explaining gravity and momentum is a totally different skill.
Exactly.
But wait, that brings up a really weird question. How did my brain know to connect the beer to the picnic? Like, why didn't I infer that the beer was just sitting on the sidewalk baking in the sun?
That brings us to one of the most important concepts in cognitive psychology. It's called schema theory.
Schema theory. Okay.
Yeah, this is the actual mechanism behind the bridge. So back in 1972, researchers John Bransford and Marcia Johnson conducted this landmark study.
What did they do?
They proved that human comprehension relies entirely on having the right mental framework or schema to interpret text.
Okay, so like a mental blueprint.
Exactly. Without the right schema, your ability to infer just collapses entirely.
Show me what you mean by that. How do they actually prove the brain needs a schema?
So they gave test subjects a highly ambiguous, almost cryptic paragraph to read. It went something like this. The procedure is actually quite simple. First, you arrange things into different groups.
Okay.
Of course, one pile may be sufficient depending on how much there is to do.
Yeah.
If you have to go somewhere else due to lack of facilities, that is the next step. It is important not to overdo any particular endeavor.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. That sounds like a corporate training manual written by an alien attempting to mimic human speech.
Right.
I mean, it is grammatically correct English, but it means absolutely nothing to me.
Well, the first group of participants agreed with you. They read it cold, rated it as totally incomprehensible, and they remembered almost nothing about it afterward.
I don't blame them.
But a second group of participants was given the exact same text, with one tiny difference. Before they read it, they were told the passage was about washing clothes.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Arrange things into different groups. You're sorting the lights and the darks.
Hmm.
One pile may be sufficient if you only have a small load. Lack of facilities going to a laundromat.
Exactly.
Suddenly, the entire alien paragraph just clicks into perfect focus.
And the comprehension and memory recall scores for that second group were massively higher. The words on the page didn't change at all, only the reader's schema changed.
That is fascinating.
Bransford and Johnson proved that inference isn't just pure, sterile, logical deduction from words on a page. You need pre-existing background knowledge to even know which inferences are relevant to pull from the text.
It is exactly like walking into a movie theater halfway through a film.
Oh, totally.
You can sit down and literally see what the characters are doing. Like they are running down a hallway, they are looking over their shoulders.
Yeah.
But without the underlying plot schema of the first hour of the movie, you can't infer why they are running.
You have the literal facts, but zero comprehension.
Exactly.
That is a perfect analogy. And for test takers, especially in clinical contexts, this is a crucial warning. The wrong inference on a multiple choice question often isn't illogical. It's just perfectly logical within the wrong schema.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so if a passage describes a patient with a racing heart and sweaty palms, and you apply an anxiety schema, you might infer a panic attack.
Which makes sense.
It does. But if the textual clues subtly point to a cardiac event schema, your anxiety inference, while logically sound in the real world, is going to cost you points on the exam.
Man, this feels incredibly dangerous, though.
It really can be.
If our brains rely so heavily on our own internal schemas to fill in the blanks automatically, that sounds like a recipe for absolute disaster if our personal life experience doesn't perfectly match what the author intended.
Yes.
So what happens when this automatic bridging goes wrong?
It can go catastrophically wrong. And psychology has actually known about this vulnerability for almost a century.
Really?
A century?
Yeah. In 1932, a British psychologist named Sir Frederick Bartlett ran an experiment known as the War of the Ghosts.
Okay, that is a cool name for a study. It is. He had British participants read a Native American folktale that was filled with spiritual concepts and cultural touchstones that were completely foreign to 1930s England.
Okay, so totally outside their schema.
Exactly. And then he asked them to recall the story repeatedly over a period of weeks and months.
Let me guess, their memories just degraded over time.
Well, they didn't just degrade, they systematically mutated.
Mutated.
The participants' brains silently rewrote the story to fit their British cultural schemas. Unfamiliar spiritual details just vanished entirely.
Wow.
And more importantly, things that didn't fit their schema were replaced with concepts that did.
Like what?
For example, the Native American characters in the story traveled in canoes, but the British subjects, over time, literally remembered them traveling in boats.
Because their brain didn't have a robust canoe slot in its water transport schema, so it just overwrote the file with boat.
Exactly.
That is deeply unsettling. It means my brain is just silently editing reality in the background to make it fit what I already know.
It is doing exactly that, and that editing process has incredibly high stakes in the real world, particularly in the legal system.
Oh, right.
Which brings us back to that jury scenario we talked about at the very beginning of the deep dive.
Yes, the car crash.
Right. So in the 1970s, cognitive psychologist Elizabeth Loftus ran these groundbreaking experiments on eyewitness memory. She showed participants a short film of a car accident.
Okay.
Afterward, she asked them to estimate how fast the cars were going, but she changed one single verb depending on which group she was asking.
Just one word.
Just one word. She asked some people, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? And others she asked, how fast were they going when they smashed into each other?
So she's relying on the schema that the word smash triggers versus the word hit.
Exactly. And the participants who heard the word smashed estimated significantly higher speeds.
That makes sense.
But the terrifying part is what happened a week later. She brought them all back and asked if they had seen any broken glass in the video. The people who heard smashed were far more likely to confidently remember seeing broken glass.
Even though there was no broken glass in the original film.
None at all. Their brains automatically inferred a detail that was consistent with the smash schema and then saved that unconscious inference as if it were a literal, observed fact.
That is terrifying.
It shows how an adaptive, lightning-fast reading skill can turn into a massive vulnerability. It literally contributes to wrongful convictions based on confidently remembered illusions.
Okay, but this brings up a massive paradox then.
What's that?
If our brains literally overwrite reality with inferences like if we are constantly generating broken glass and gloves that aren't there, how can a multiple choice test fairly judge what is a correct inference?
Ah, right.
Like if two smart people can walk away with two completely different schema-driven interpretations, how does a test maker decide there is only one objectively right answer?
That exact paradox sparked a really fierce debate in cognitive psychology throughout the 1990s.
I can imagine.
On one side, you had researchers like Arthur Gracer and Murray Singer, who championed what they called the constructionist theory.
Okay, constructionist.
Yeah, they argued that skilled readers are constantly and actively constructing a rich mental world, inferring causes, goals, and consequences as they read.
So they're the people who say, yes, you picture the surgeon in gloves, because that is just what a good reader does. They build the scene.
Right, exactly. But on the other side, researchers Gail McCune and Roger Ratcliffe pushed back with the minimalist hypothesis.
The minimalist hypothesis.
Yes. They argued that, by default, readers automatically generate only the absolute bare minimum inferences needed to keep the text locally coherent.
Like the Mary and the beer thing.
Exactly. Just figuring out who the pronouns refer to or connecting the warm beer to the picnic. Everything else, the rich world building, the gloves, the broken glass, they argued that all of that is optional.
Yeah.
It takes extra cognitive effort and it relies way too much on the reader's personal imagination.
Okay, so who won the debate? Does the brain build a rich world or just do the bare minimum?
Well, in the broader field of psychology, it's pretty nuanced. But in the world of standardized testing, the minimalists won completely.
Really?
Yes. Test designers use that minimalist hypothesis to ensure a question is legally and academically fair.
I see.
They design questions checking if you can strictly stick to the textual evidence without spiraling into constructive imagination. They establish what they call a minimalist floor.
A minimalist floor,
Yeah.
which basically means on a test, Absence from the text is necessary, but it's not sufficient to make it a correct inference. It has to be the one and only logical path forward.
You nailed it.
It's like they're asking you to walk a tightrope of logic without using the safety net of your own imagination.
Yeah. That is exactly what it is. And it completely explains why inference is the absolute bedrock of clinical reasoning.
Let's talk about that clinical side.
Yeah, let's look at how this plays out on a TEAS or HESI nursing exam. Imagine you are given this short clinical proxy passage.
Okay, I'm ready.
The patient reports she hasn't eaten since dinner the previous evening and feels lightheaded when she stands up from a chair.
Okay, so no actual medical diagnosis is explicitly stated in that sentence at all. It's just a list of symptoms and behaviors.
Right. But a nursing school candidate is expected to combine no food for over 12 hours, dizziness, and specifically upon standing, to infer that the patient is likely experiencing orthostatic hypotension related to low blood glucose or volume depletion.
Wow. And for anyone listening who isn't a medical student, orthostatic hypotension is essentially the clinical term for when your blood pressure suddenly drops because you stood up too fast, making you dizzy.
Correct. The passage doesn't say blood pressure drop anywhere, but the specific combination of clues creates a bridge that forces that single logical conclusion. That is what nursing exams are built to test.
That is a total light bulb moment for me.
Ah.
Because you realize that on these tests, you are not just diagnosing a paragraph.
Oh, yeah.
You are practicing diagnosing a human being. The exam is literally screening your clinical reflexes, making sure you can stick to that minimalist floor of facts before they ever let you touch a real patient's chart.
It really is, and it maps perfectly onto Bloom's taxonomy of learning, too.
Remind me what that is.
If you picture learning as a pyramid, at the very bottom is basic knowledge, like can you regurgitate facts?
Right.
Making inferences sits right in the middle. It is the bridge skill. It sits above basic literal comprehension, but it is the required step before you can reach the top of the pyramid, which is synthesizing information and making critical evaluations.
Because if a nurse fails to infer unstated distress from a patient's hesitation, or worse, if they over-elaborate and infer a diagnosis based on a superficial schema rather than the actual chart.
That isn't just a lost test point.
No, that is a patient safety crisis.
Exactly. And honestly, outside the hospital, it is the exact same skill set required for modern media literacy.
Oh, absolutely.
Researchers point out that the spread of misinformation is largely an inference failure. People read a sensational headline, apply their own political or social schema to it, and instantly infer a whole narrative without ever checking the body of the article to see if the actual data supports the bridge they just built.
We get fooled because we let our brains do the fast, elaborative work without slowing down to check the minimalist floor.
Exactly.
So if you are listening to this, what's the ultimate takeaway? We have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We started with Herbert Clark's warm picnic beer, proving that our brains build invisible bridges between sentences in milliseconds.
Right.
We looked at how our own schemas can literally rewrite our memories, like seeing broken glass in a car crash where there was none. And we looked at the high-stakes world of clinical reading, where missing an inference can mean missing a life-or-death diagnosis.
And through it all, the rule remains exactly the same. A valid inference is strictly evidence plus logic. It is never evidence plus imagination.
Never.
If you have to bring in an outside fact to prove your answer on a standardized test, you have fallen into an assumption trap.
It's a remarkably delicate cognitive balance.
It really is. And I actually want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
So we've established today that human comprehension relies entirely on our cultural and historical schemas to make these bridging inferences, right?
Yes, the washing clothes schema.
Exactly. You literally need your lived human experience knowing how to wash clothes, knowing what a picnic is to understand text. But today, we are increasingly relying on artificial intelligence and large language models to summarize texts, analyze articles, and evaluate information for us.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
These systems possess vast amounts of training data, but they have absolutely zero lived human experience. They have no true cultural schema.
It's true.
So how might that alter the very nature of reading between the lines? If we outsource this bridging process to a machine, do we risk losing the deeply human art of the inference?
Man, that is a fascinating and honestly slightly terrifying question to end on.
It gives you something to think about.
Because as we've learned today, whether you are staring down a multiple-choice exam question, sitting on a witness stand, or standing in a hospital room, that lightning-fast cognitive process is always running.
Always.
The invisible architecture of comprehension dictates how we see the entire world. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning what you read, keep an eye on your own assumptions, and most importantly, keep reading between the lines.